Hello, I am the limited edition beardless American Johnson, and this is Non-Compete. And today's video is somewhat rushed, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Also, I bit my tongue way in the back. I bit the back part of my tongue, like on the side, with my molars when I was eating lunch today. Just a little bit painful to talk, so let's just try to get through this efficiently. If that's possible with my rambling scriptless videos. But yeah, the reason that I haven't had a lot of time to work on a video this week, I'm actually sitting down shooting it probably about 3 or 4 hours before you're actually going to see it. So there's not going to be a lot of editing on this one either. Is because I've been working really hard with a lot of other people on the genstrike.org project, which was started a few weeks ago. And we are collaborating now with various other organizations in anticipation of May 1st, otherwise known as May Day, which has always been a big day for leftists going all the way back to the 19th century. I did a video on the history of May Day. I'll put a link to that in the description if you're not familiar with that. But anyway, the whole idea is, given all of the terrible things that have been happening lately, all of the scary stuff that's been going on with the pandemic, with fascists and reactionaries and white supremacists flooding into the streets in some cities in the USA, demanding that the economies be quote unquote opened up, which means just like throwing people back into work, into harm's way. I don't think I need to explain why that's a terrible idea. It's going to endanger the lives of immunocompromised people, disabled people, elderly people. There are a lot of people, and just normal people, of course, as well, because COVID-19 is a disease that can cause a lot of damage even to healthy young people. So there's a lot to be concerned with. There's also, of course, the horrendous job that Donald Trump and company have been doing managing this crisis. Again, they're talking about wanting to open up the economy as quickly as possible. And of course, we know as leftists that opening up the economy means just basically throwing workers into the grinder so that capitalists can make more profits. And we don't want that to happen. So on May 1st, there will be, hopefully, there are planned, and I do believe this will come to fruition, but we need your help. That's what this video is about. We are planning major actions for May 1st. And when I say we, who am I talking about? I'm talking about not just genstrike.org. We're actually not even the ones who spearheaded this, really. We're just here as a support group. We're going to be working with folks who are really active in organizing labor right now, which includes Black Socialists in America, Corona Strike, Care Strike, Cooperation Jackson. It's Going Down is trying to promote this stuff. There are lots of organizations. There are unions that are planning to strike. There are workers' associations that are planning to strike and have other kinds of demonstrations. There are a lot of people doing stuff right now, and we're all trying to coordinate around May 1st. Now, a lot of us are talking about carrying this forward so that we will have a major demonstration like this, major actions on the 1st of every month indefinitely until some of our demands are met. If you want to see our demands and our platform, our goals, and our strategies for GenStrike, the organization that I'm involved with, I'll put a link to that in the description. You just go to genstrike.org/about/our-platform. That'll talk you through the basics of what we're trying to do. There's also a written article version of basically all the information I'm about to give you. And I will, of course, also link to that as well. It's called the May Day Guide. But basically, we want everyone to participate as much as they are able. So I'm just going to walk through some of the ways in which you can participate. I'm going to try to go in order from like least effort required and least challenging to, things that, and we'll slowly build up towards things that are a little bit more challenging, and we'll talk about how you might be able to get involved no matter what your situation is. And the first thing I want to say is, I know there's some people watching this right now who cannot do anything at all. Maybe you are disabled, maybe you have mental illness, maybe you are going through a tough bout of depression right now. I've been pretty depressed myself lately. I know what that's like. I've gone through periods where I couldn't get out of bed for weeks on end. So I know what that's like. I know that there are people who are working multiple jobs and can't afford, because that you're verging on going into the street, and maybe you cannot participate at all. For whatever reason, if you can't participate, we understand that. I hope that just means for the rest of us that we know that we need to work that much harder to challenge ourselves to do more if we can do more. So this is really, I think, a wake-up call for the working class. And this is a time where we really have to stick to that motto, from each according to their ability, to each according to their needs. So If you have a lot of need right now and very little ability, I don't think anybody should shame you for that. I'm certainly not trying to shame you for that. If you have perhaps a little bit of capacity in terms of ability, if you have a little bit of free time right now, if you have some energy, if you have some skills to bring to the table, we really need you. Please come and help us out. So let's talk about some of the things that you can do specifically in relation to May 1st. And then, we'll wrap things up by talking about the long term. So the very first thing that we would love for you to do is get involved with an organization. You might already have one in mind that you've been thinking about joining, just been putting it off. Maybe you have no idea where to start. Genstrike.org, one of the things that we do is we counsel people, workers who, and not just people who work, but also disabled people, anybody who wants to help out. We counsel people to find organizations that match their situation. So if you're looking to rent strike, if you're looking to debt strike, if you're looking to labor strike, or if you're just looking to support other striking workers, or if you're looking to help build mutual aid networks, those are all things we can help you to do. We can help you to find organizations in your area. And if there is no organization in your area, we can possibly, hopefully help you to start one. We're here as a support group first and foremost. So find an organization. There will be a link to, there will be several links in the video description here, and a link to the article, which has even more links. The article Mayday Guide will have a lot more links to organizations. And of course, we have many, many more organizations that we can put you in touch with if you get in contact with us at Genstrike. But find a group to work with. If there's not any group in your area, maybe you can consider doing online activism. There's plenty of ways you can help genstrike.org online without ever leaving your own home. And that's the case for a lot of other organizations as well. But you should not be acting alone right now. That's another slogan for genstrike.org. Do not act alone. We are here to help you. There are comrades around the world who have been through organization. They know how it works. They know what not to do. They know the science of organizing and activism. So don't act alone. If you're not sure where to start, find a group, find some comrades, and then start digging in. So the other thing I want to say is no matter where you are, no matter what your situation is, please do not cross picket lines. And that means if you're a worker and your coworkers are striking, do not go to work. Do not cross the picket line. Do not be a scab. If you're a tenant in a building and all the other tenants in your building are organizing a rent strike, don't be the person that holds out. Don't pay your rent and screw over everybody else in your building. I know it's tough. I know it's scary, but that's what being a leftist means sometimes, is standing up with your fellow workers, with your fellow tenants, with the people around you, and pushing back against these horrifically cruel systems that oppress all of us. Do not cross picket lines. If your local grocery store has workers striking on May 1st, don't go there and shop. Don't ever shop at a place where workers are actively striking. Don't give your money to a business that treats workers so badly that they've had to resort to striking. Okay, that's another way of crossing the picket line, is if you shop and do business with a company that has workers striking. If you can at all avoid it, don't do it. And let the company know why they're not getting your business. Take the time to give them a call, write them an email, write them a letter, let them know on Facebook or Twitter, I'm not giving you any of my money while these workers are striking. Here's why. I support these workers. That's very powerful. If you can do that as a customer, as a client, that will help those workers who are striking. Okay. What are some other things that you can do to help the cause specifically on May 1st? You could definitely help us out by signal boosting. Listen, right now, as of today is April 19th, my time. As of right now, workers have been striking for months now as a result of the pandemic. We've had workers who have been striking for a long time, okay, across the USA and around the world. We've had workers striking at Amazon, Whole Foods, Domino's. The list goes on. Sanitation workers. I could keep listing them off. Okay, this stuff has been happening. Okay, organization has been happening for months now. The press isn't covering it the way that they're covering these astroturfed, fake-ass, Betsy Davos-funded rebellions that are happening in cities where these asshats are going out into the streets, sometimes armed with guns, and demanding that the economy get opened back up. These are fake, privately funded, astroturfed campaigns. If you don't know what astroturfing is, it means when you get a powerful, deep-pocketed entity that goes out and tries to make something that looks like a grassroots, ground-up organizing effort. That's what we're dealing with here. And these fake rebellions are getting so much press attention. The media is going out of their way, falling over themselves to cover these things, and they're ignoring the strikes. There's very, very little coverage in comparison, especially when you consider the scale. Because I would argue that the scale and the importance of those striking workers and the striking tenants is monumentally larger than the scale of these fake astroturfed events where, people are going out and they're sipping their Baskin Robbins drinks while they're holding up a sign that some public relations intern designed earlier that morning. So anyway, the point of that is the mainstream media is not going to be covering this. Genstrike.org and every other organization, we've been sending press releases out to major news networks. To my knowledge, they haven't gotten back to us. They haven't gotten back to anybody. They don't want to cover this stuff. It's on us. It's on the workers to signal boost our own message. We have to be our own communications teams. We have to be our own press when it comes to these activities. So if you have a Twitter, if you have a Facebook, if you have a YouTube channel, if you have a Twitch channel, if you are in the audience of YouTube and Twitch creators, please raise the flag. Let people know that this stuff is happening. Okay, and this is important stuff. If you have your own platform, even if it's just 100 people or less, if you're able to signal boost what we're doing, please do it. You can follow Genstrike on social media. You can follow Corona Strike. You can follow Black Socialists in America. You can follow It's Going Down. There are lots of organizations, Care Strike. There are lots of organizations that are doing major things right now. Follow them on social media. Retweet their stuff. Let people know what's going on. Let people know what your plan is for supporting the May Day operations. And another great thing you can do is if you follow content creators and influencers and you're in these audiences, let those content creators know that you want them to cover this stuff, and not just leftist YouTubers. I think that this is relevant to every single person right now. And they should all know that this stuff is going on. And we should be letting influencers and content creators that we follow know that this is something that's important to us. And this is something that we want them to participate in and pay attention to. So the next thing you can do, signal boost. Signal boost. Okay, moving on. The next thing you can do is not buy anything on May 1st. If you can plan it ahead right now, you still have a couple of weeks as of the time I'm recording this. Plan ahead so that you don't have to buy a single thing on May 1st. Now, remember, this is the first major coordinated activity, okay? On May 1st, maybe we'll have mass participation and lots of people will be participating. Maybe it will be smaller than we hope that it will be. But the point is we're going to keep doing this on the first of every month. We want to build momentum. And the idea is that eventually we'll have enough momentum that we can start doing a protracted rolling strike where tenants and workers and people who owe debt are all striking in this like rolling wave sort of strategy. But we got to build ourselves up to that first. So that's why we're doing this every first strategy. So if you can go at least one day on May 1st without buying anything, and if you can, let companies know, especially if they have striking workers, let them know that this is why you're striking, because you don't want the economy to be opened up prematurely, and you don't want workers being exposed to this deadly contagion, which puts all of us at risk. So don't buy anything on May 1st if you can possibly help it. And I'm saying don't buy anything. Don't buy products, don't buy services, don't buy food, don't buy anything. Stay home and do not participate in the capitalist economy. I know it's tough. We all like buying stuff, but let's cut down on the consumerism at least for that one day, and show some solidarity to these workers who will be striking. You can also, if you have any extra money or if you have any extra food laying around or anything like that, you can donate money and goods and services to striking workers. You can get in contact with like local unions who might be striking. You can get in contact with your local IWW branch. If there are any workers associations in your area, I'll link to some maps and some resources that have lists of different striking groups and different mutual aid networks and that sort of thing, where you can get in touch and donate food, donate money to hardship funds, that sort of thing. For a striking worker, time is an essential commodity. The longer workers can strike and stay off the job, the more powerful they become over time. Because what they're doing is they're sucking the profits away from their capitalist employers. And the main pressure for workers to go back onto the job is the fact that their money, their personal funds and their finances are going to be dwindling because they're not on the job, they're not on the clock, they're not making money. So it's pretty easy to reason out that if you can donate 10, 20 bucks to a hardship fund, that could go a long way towards keeping those workers striking maybe an extra day, maybe an extra couple of days. If we all chip in and we help finance these hardship funds and these strike relief funds, then we might keep a strike going just that little bit of extra time that they need to have their demands met. You can also support mutual aid networks, which these have popped up all across the USA, all around the world. And these are helping people who have all kinds of vulnerable situations, whether they're homeless, disabled, just lost their jobs, whatever. We have these mutual aid networks. They need goods, they need money, and they need help. So I will also link to some mutual aid networks and contribute what you're able to those as you are able. Now let's talk a little bit about what you can be doing at your workplace. Okay, the number one thing that you should be doing is learning about organizing. If you're starting from scratch and you don't know anything about any of this stuff, you should be learning how to organize, what the science of organizing looks like. A lot of people think that they have no potential to organize because they don't know how organizing works. So the first thing you need to be doing is training yourself up. And you don't have to do this alone. If you join the IWW, the one big union, the industrial workers of the world, they have amazing resources for you. They have guidebooks, they have training seminars, they have online workshops you can be taking. They've been doing workshops that are specifically focused on COVID-19 and how we can prepare ourselves as workers for this ongoing, prolonged crisis we're facing. I think the IWW is an amazing resource. All of us should be participating and joining up and going through these trainings. I'm going to be doing the basic organizing training myself as soon as possible. I reach out to them. I'll hopefully be signed up into that within the next week or two. But it's something that we can do to arm ourselves with knowledge on how to organize our workplaces. Beyond that, there are lots of other groups. There are workers' associations. There are trade unions. You can read books and guides. I'll put links to some of those resources in the description here. But learn about how organizing works so it doesn't seem like such a foreign alien concept to you. And then if you have an organized workplace, or if you feel like you have a good enough relationship with your fellow workers and you have hopefully somebody who can advise you through something like this, and if you don't have somebody like that, again, reach out to us at genstrike.org. We can help put you in touch with people who can help you, or we might even be able to help you ourselves depending on your situation. But if you do have a workplace that you think is organized enough, you might want to consider the easiest thing to do would be like a slowdown. And that just means you go into work and you slow your work down together collectively. There are lots of ways to do this, but just basically keep your production slow, keep your output slow so that your bosses make less money. This works better over longer times typically, but even if you just do it on May 1st and that's all that you can do, well, that's something. It's better than nothing. You could also consider something that's a little bit more stealthy would be a sick out. And that would be a situation where you and all of your fellow coworkers call in sick at the same time with the idea of shutting down the business on that day. This is something you can do in certain situations. It might be better than a strike depending on your situation. Again, we recommend that you only do this if you're coordinating with, if either you have the experience to do something like this yourself or you're coordinating with somebody who has experience and can talk you through it. But a sick out is a great way to get around the fact that you can't strike, or maybe you're not organized enough to have a formal strike. And sick outs are usually a little bit safer than strikes, and have some plausible deniability and some sort of, if everyone works on it together and sicks out together, then you're all sort of protecting each other. Another thing you can do if you can't sick out or you can't slow down, you can't strike, you can have a petition. And this is something that a lot of groups are recommending workers do right now. Have a petition and get everybody to sign it between now and May 1st, all your coworkers, for whatever your demands might be to make your workplace less hostile, more safe, whether you need PPE, whether you need paid sick leave, whatever you might happen to need. Get a petition going in your workplace, and then on May 1st, present the petition with all those signatures to your employer. You can also demonstrate at work on May 1st, depending on your circumstance. Again, depends on your workplace, and don't do any of this stuff alone. I'm going to keep repeating myself because I don't want you to do any of this stuff on your own as an individual, or if you don't know what you're doing and you go off half-cocked, that would be bad. But if you can demonstrate at work, there are options. You could maybe wear a hat or a t-shirt or a pin or a badge or something like that that shows that you're supporting striking workers, you're supporting the May Day operations, and that you want to stop work during this pandemic. One thing that we're considering is recommending that people wear like a stop sign symbol of some kind, as like a symbol that we want to stop the economy, not open it back up, because we want to save human lives, and we want to put human lives, we want to value human lives over the economy, which really just means capitalist profits. So you can wear like a little badge that says stop work, or I support striking workers, or ask me about general strike, or maybe hashtags like hashtag general strike 2020, hashtag May Day 2020, something like that. You could be as subtle or as pronounced as you can, depending on your workplace. If you're not allowed to wear any kind of special garb at work, or if you think that might get you in trouble, you might be able to get away with putting a little poster or an index card or something at your workstation that shows the same thing. Just something that will signal to your fellow workers and possibly to customers that you're supporting the May Day movement and the wider general strike movement. But again, don't do this alone. Don't do this as a lone individual. Only do this if you have the capacity to organize, or if you're very, very sure that this won't get you fired. What we don't want is for you to go get yourself fired as an individual. That's not going to help the movement. That's going to weaken us collectively as a working class if you get fired and put in a position where you're like not going to be able to pay your rent, or unless you're rent striking, which we'll get to that. But anyway, we don't want you out in the street or in some kind of bad situation. So don't act alone. Don't do any of this stuff without talking to somebody who knows what they're doing. I'm just giving you some ideas for some things you could ask about if you find an advisor or you find a group that can talk you through this kind of thing. Let's get into actual labor striking now. And labor striking is a big commitment, and it requires a lot of preparation, planning. It's not something you should take lightly, okay? And even like a wildcat strike where you get all the workers pissed off at the same time together, there is a chance you could all get fired. It depends on your industry, and it depends on your contracts and that sort of thing. It could be very bad for you if you strike and you don't know what you're doing in terms of the law, and you don't know what you're doing in terms of your contracts and your employer's situation, all this kind of stuff. You need to have a very, very good plan going into it. That's why I'm recommending you start training now. Maybe May 1st, you don't make it into the labor strike because maybe you're not prepared enough, but maybe you could start organizing now so that on June 1st, you will be able to strike, or July 1st, or whatever. My point is, don't go into this half-cocked, but do start right now doing whatever you need to do to understand what it would take for you to strike. And that all just depends on your background. Maybe you're a seasoned union, lifelong union member, and you know exactly what to do. Or maybe you've never done this stuff in your life and you have no idea where to begin. You know your circumstances better than I do. If you have any questions, get in touch with the IWW, get in touch with us at genstrike.org, or get in touch with one of our partner organizations and get the help that you need. It's a major operation. It can be very, very powerful. And we want to see as many workers striking as possible moving forward. On the first of every month, we want to have these coordinated strikes. And then eventually we do want to have some kind of rolling general strike situation going, but we're not there yet. But we are prepared to do some major actions on May 1st. So think about it very carefully. If you have any coworkers that you trust, talk to them very carefully. Maybe consider joining the IWW together or contacting us at GenStrike together. But regardless, do not act alone. Get the help and support you need. There are lots and lots of comrades out there who are ready and willing to help you with great advice and counseling and all these services. So that's that for the workplace, I think. If you're not working, or even if you are, there are plenty of other options for other kinds of demonstrations and strike efforts. So you can start tenant organizing, either within your building, if you live in like an apartment building or apartment complex or something like that, or within your local community. Maybe start tenant organizing with your neighborhood, whatever that might mean for your living situation. Maybe it just means organizing your roommates, at least starting out, with the eye towards rent striking. As of right now, 31% of people in the USA are not paying rent anyway, mostly because they're not able to. So if you're in a situation where you can't pay your rent anyway, or maybe you're struggling financially, you're not very stable right now, why not turn not paying your rent into a political action? But don't act alone. Don't just go off and as an individual, write a letter to your landlord and say you're refusing to pay your rent. That's a quick way to get evicted. You need to be organizing. Don't act alone. Work with other people. Work with people in your community. There are lots of guides on the internet for how to organize a tenants union. There are lots of other tenant unions that would be very happy, I'm sure, to help you point you in the direction in terms of organizing. And if nothing else, you can, of course, contact us at genstrike.org, and we can kind of guide you to at least find the resources and advice that you need. We have some resources ourselves to help you out with, but don't act alone. There's a great organization called Housing Justice for All that they're planning a major operation for May 1st in terms of rent striking. I know it's huge in New York City, and hopefully it'll be big in every other city. I'd love to see this rent strike thing happen, moving forward indefinitely until our collective demands are met. The other option is debt striking, and I'm not seeing as much talk about this yet, but it's something that I am very big on myself. Debt is something that has ruined my life at various times in my life. I've had medical debt. I've had credit card debt. I've suffered predatory interest from a bank. Debt is the reason that I left the USA, actually, and the reason that I'm probably never going to go back. And so I'm really big on fighting back against these lenders, these these freaking debt collection agencies. They plagued me for years and years and years. The only reason I don't worry about them anymore is because I don't live in the USA anymore. I just kind of park them all on a Google Voice line that I just never even check anymore. But yeah, these predatory credit debt collectors, and all of this debt that we're saddled with. The average U.S. American has over $6,000 in credit card debt alone. Half of the people who have medical debt in the USA have had to default on it. It's evil stuff. So I think it's time to start talking about organizing debt strike. There is an organization called Strike Debt that has been trying to plan debt striking for a long time. I'll put a link to that in the description. But it's something that I think all of us need to be aware of and considering right now. Our money shouldn't be going to pay off interest on loans right now and credit card bills while we're all trying to figure out how we're going to eat and how we're going to survive in the middle of a pandemic. 32% of American workers have medical debt. It's a big problem. It's something we need to start standing up and joining together against the credit industry and fighting back against that, and the banks and everybody else. That's going to take more organization. That's why I'm going to say get in touch with strikedebt.org for now. It's something GenStrike is going to be more involved with in the future moving forward. I'll probably do videos on that in the future when we're ready for it. But for now, just something to think about and consider getting in touch with strikedebt.org. There's a lot more you can do. You can demonstrate in various other ways. You can get in touch with other kinds of groups, whatever is important to you, whatever is local to you, whether it's immigrant detainee groups, indigenous liberation and decolonization groups, homeless advocate groups, there's community food banks, there's mutual aid networks, there's disabled rights groups, there's LGBTQ plus groups. We raised a lot of money just before the pandemic started for the Trevor Project, and they help LGBTQ plus youth with suicide prevention and mental health support. So that's something that right now in these times when we're all locked up indoors, mental health is really important. There's so many things that you can do to help your community, help your neighbors, help your comrades, help your fellow workers out. If you're already doing stuff like that, that's fantastic. Let us know if we can help you. But that's I want you to know that I do believe, even though this is a scary time, and even though I'm terrified, to be perfectly honest, I don't know what's going to happen. I think that the world is going to change, and there's a good chance it can change for the worse unless we come together right now and stand together. We see the fascists out there, they're astroturfing. They're trying to organize on their end. They've got deep pockets. They've got big, powerful names that like Betsy DeVos funding these fake rebellions, and they're getting the attention. And they've got the president on their side, and they've got a lot of capitalists on their side. They've got Jeff Bezos, who just spent $16 million on an apartment in New York City yesterday. Just close that deal. You got to make sure you get that plague discount, Jeff. You've got these deep-pocketed billionaires that we're standing up to, and that's why we need every single one of you doing what you can. If there's nothing you can do, we're here to back you up and try to support you as a vulnerable person. But if there's anything that you can do, if you could do a little bit more, I urge you to challenge yourself to do more. It'll make you feel great. I think that if I weren't involved in this organizing stuff, if I weren't talking to workers around the world, hearing from workers all over the country in the USA who are talking about how they've never been political in their lives, but since this pandemic started, They're scared, they're frightened, they're angry, and they're ready to act for the first time. I've heard the story over and over and over again. Most of them just don't know what to do, and they need to be pointed in the right direction. And then as soon as we give them a little guidance, a little advice, hook them up with an organization or get them, include into genstrike.org so they can help us, they're rocking and rolling. The working class can come together right now. Let's do it. Let's stay safe. Let's show solidarity. Let's be respectful of each other right now. Now is not the time for bickering and squabbling and sectarianism. If you don't like people from a certain ideological tendency, just ignore them. Work on something productive right now. I'm begging you. I've been running this channel for about 3 years now, and this is the most dire situation that I've lived through in my entire life. But it's giving me hope, just seeing all these workers coming together and doing stuff, like really actually getting out there and doing stuff to help each other out, to support each other, to lift each other up in these really, really dark times. So yeah, it's scary. It sucks. I don't want to be going through this. I really wish they would just come up with the vaccine, but it looks like it's gonna be a long time before that happens. So we got to do what we can to protect each other and take care of each other right now. And if there's anything that we can do, if there's anything that I can do to help you, get in touch with us at genstrike.org. But yeah, just stay safe, take care of each other, solidarity, and May 1st, let's make a splash. Let's do something big. I'm American Johnson. This is Non-Compete. My beard will be back before too long. Let's take a moment of silence for the beard. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about my Patreons too, my Patreon supporters. So feels a little crass to talk about Patreon right now when we're talking about like a big organization, but I just want to say, if it weren't for my Patreon supporters, I wouldn't have the time to be doing a lot of the organizing that I've been doing. But that said, I know that I've had a lot of emails from people who can't support me on Patreon, and a lot of you have had to stop contributing, and that is 1000% A-okay. That doesn't upset me at all. I totally understand. So if you need to take a break from supporting us on Patreon right now, we totally understand it. That's the most important thing I want to say right now. So I do want to say thank you to the people that are supporting us. And I'm sorry that, I haven't been producing the most content. I'm not the most prolific I've ever been. I've been spending a lot of time on genstrike.org and some other things to try to help organize the workers. So I haven't been super attentive to the Patreon. I haven't been putting out a lot of updates and that sort of thing. I hope you understand why. And if you've had to leave the Patreon, there's no reason for you to apologize. You don't even have to let me know why or anything like that. I mean, I don't care. It's fine. I understand. So just take care of yourself right now. Be safe. And yeah, thank you for everything.